Hey guys and gals, I'm Dave. This is Chris. Say hi, Chris.
I say hi, Dave. How are
Good.
you?
How about you, bud? What are we doing today?
I'm doing
Yeah,
good.
we're
Lots and lots of fantasy football prep work. What am I doing today? You
of
know what
course
I'm
you're
doing
doing. It's
today.
all August. That's what you're doing. We're sounding pretty happy, having fun. But if you end up with some of these guys on your team, you might not be as happy because we're gonna talk about some
Fair.
busts. Um,
Yes. And of course, I mean, so sorry to interrupt, but busts is always like, that's the sexy SEO, search engine optimization terminology. Like, there's no player, Dave, that nobody, that we're all going to take any player if the price is right. So I'm not nominating players, and on the podcast, I didn't nominate players that I think are going to lose their jobs by week 3. I'm talking about players who I recognize what the value is, but I don't want any part of them at their current average draft position.
yeah, I mean the biggest busts probably end up being injuries, and we can't predict those. That's where you really get screwed, honestly. But
Fair point. Yeah.
But on the podcast, you talked about some busts and you named it the Miles Sanders Memorial List because you weren't going to talk about them. But here on the video, we can show and not just talk about it. So, unsurprisingly,
Right.
although it's a big name, it's an early draft pick. Miles Sanders is a bust at this ADP.
Again, I don't like the ADP, right? It's not like I'm predicting Boston Scott is the primary running back of the Philadelphia Eagles. No, what the explanation I've given a lot, and I'm going to give it a lot here as well, and we'll try to show some of what I'm talking about as we go. Is I don't love him having to take him at what I consider to be the peak of his draft value. Like, there's a range of possible outcomes for Miles Sanders, and if he's going, I mean, I've got him RB8, maybe RB7, sometimes RB6. That's clearly a mid first round pick, mid to late. And I think he has to perform at the peak of his value there. If he gets better, great. I understand. I understand why people like him. He's very fast. He's a terrific athlete. He catches the ball well. There's tons of athletic ability like Dave, no question about it. The alarms that I see from the really all of the rookie year and even the end when he played very well is what we've been calling elite blindness. that he has a lot of elite qualities, and one of them is not really seeing it that well on film. Of times when he cut away from air, times when he cut into offensive linemen, times where it just didn't seem like he got it. Now, when he did get it and broke into the clear, you see great, raw, awesome athletic ability. But my concern is not that he's going to get benched, but that this note that a lot of what people love about him is situation. The Eagles don't have a lot of other running backs that people love. How could he not get through to touches? And my feeling is that if a player isn't performing, isn't producing, there's always someone else. And the names in my rookie evaluation that I keep coming back to for Miles Sanders are Tevin Coleman and Lamar Miller. At no time would you have ever said that they're like out of the league, that they're terrible. But I think both those two guys have kind of a similar pedigree of sprinters who are on the bigger side. Coleman a little maybe bigger than more like Sanders' size. And I'm concerned that you'll get, what's Lamar Miller experience been all these years? Draft him at RB7 and he winds up RB18. He's not a disaster, but it's never quite as good as you think it should be. If Sanders stays exactly what he saw last year, he's being overdrafted. If he got better, I'm okay. I missed out, but I'm okay with that missing out. I think if he gets better, that's where he should be drafted, is the first round. But I'm usually not going to want to draft a guy by projecting based on having seen things I don't
Yeah, you
love.
don't want to draft at the peak of his upside. I want to actually clarify something you said. When you started talking about him, you said you've got him at like 6 or 7 or 8. You're saying you're seeing him at that ADP in drafts,
The
right?
market,
Because you have him at
right? Yeah,
17
I
or
don't have him that
15.
high,
You've got him kind of more in the second round
right?
pick. So I just want to clarify for people.
Yeah, he's more. I mean, I'm never going to get him at that price, and I understand it. They're just players I'm never going to get. This isn't. I mean, we have someone else on this list who I think is overrated as a player, who I actually have rated higher than Sanders among running backs. I think Sanders's issue is the unknowns. How do you feel about the prospect of taking Sanders late first
No,
round?
that makes me scared because at the end of the first round, there's too many players I I know and like, which maybe is a little unfair because like I'm in on the Jack Gerbil and he was also a young guy. So saying I know him maybe isn't totally accurate, but like I'm more comfortable
Well,
with other
except for
guys at the end of the first.
Yeah, like Jacobs, compare Josh Jacobs to Miles Sanders. I'm comfortable. They're both second year running backs. I'm comfortable with Josh Jacobs and at the end of the first, beginning of the second, and I don't probably want Miles Sanders there. And the difference is the performance. What I saw on film, we've shown so much Josh Jacobs film, and there isn't nearly as good. This is a perfect example of why if he gets better, if David Montgomery gets better, like if the dudes who weren't what I would consider awesome as rookies improve, that's great. In year 3, I'm going to draft the hell out of them. But this year, yeah, I've said my piece. We've shown some film. That's the last you're ever going to hear from me about Miles
I'm not sure
Sanders.
that's true.
That's not no.
As we go through this list, like we said, it's not that we hate any of these players. So any of them could have big weeks.
Right.
And when they have a big week, that's exactly when you want them to be on DraftKings. And this video is brought to you by DraftKings today, where we play all season long.
It is indeed. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're playing DraftKings. They have a pretty good promotion to get you ready for 2020 right now. What, Dave? They're calling it the golden ticket promotion.
Yeah, it's a golden ticket. So for new users who sign up, you get a shot at winning a portion of $100 million just for signing up for free.
Oh, yeah. So like if you sign up and you have never played on DraftKings before and you use the promo code HarrisTube, then you will get a free entry into this golden ticket contest. And one person in this golden ticket contest gonna win $1 million. It might be you, in which case you can probably spend some time coming up with your own Miles Sanders film evaluations. But in the meantime, we'll do it for you.
So thanks again to DraftKings for sponsoring this video. If you go ahead and sign up, you could instantly win up to $25,000 in prizes, and then one lucky winner gets a shot at $1 million.
Promo code HarrisTube.
Getting back into our list, we've got Daniel Jones, who's got 18 fumbles and 12 interceptions. How could he possibly be on a bust list, Chris?
So, okay, so on the one hand, with Daniel Jones, I understand that our advice at quarterback is always, if you're in a league where streaming quarterbacks is a real thing, then take the upside guy. Why not? It's fine. So if I'm going to tell you, which I'm about to, that I'm worried that Daniel Jones is Jameis Winston, you go, ha, 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 ha. I liked owning Jameis Winston last year. It was cool. It gave me a lot of fantasy points. I'm fine. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll drop him in week 3 and I'll add whatever off the waiver wire. To some extent, I agree. I agree with that. So I don't mind the notion of saying, if I'm choosing between Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones, even if Kirk Cousins has a better percent chance of winding up with more fantasy points, the ceiling is clearly higher with Daniel Jones. I don't disagree with that, but I just think I can find, I'll take Matthew Stafford. I'll take Cam Newton, many other guys who are going behind Daniel Jones, who I think have plenty of ceiling. I am worried that Daniel Jones has some Mitch Trubisky in him, some Blake Bortles in him, some Jameis Winston in him. There's a hair on fire quality to Daniel Jones that we saw in his rookie year that 100% absolutely could get schooled out of him. It's a new coaching staff. Jason Garrett, I hear, is an amazing coach, but offensive coordinator now. But I don't know, Dave, like this feels to me like the same kind of thing as Miles Sanders. Like, I haven't seen it yet, but I'll just go ahead and assume it's going to happen. Like, I'm happy that Daniel Jones didn't come into the league completely unable to play, which some of us suspected might be the case. He clearly can play. He can play. He's an NFL quality player, but I need to see way more constraint, I think, or restraint before I would consider him like as that quarterback that I'm waiting for in drafts.
Yeah, I mean, if we're waiting on quarterback, I never really take the view that I'm waiting on a quarterback. It's kind of
That's a fair point.
Who's there
Right.
when I go. But I would feel better if I got Cam, and he also could bust, but I would feel better about it because I've seen it before versus maybe he pulled it all together this summer. And that's kind of how I feel about it is hey, maybe he got there.
Right. Yeah. The feeling that I mean, I think people will say, well, but look at the massive spikes, right? I already got great value out of them. Look at the cumulative totals. And my thing is that the cumulative totals were one thing and the ride was something else with Daniel Jones because there were negative point games in there. And I'm worried that you get that. Like, there's only so many of those that a team allows to have happen. And then, plugs get pulled.
Moving down our list before anyone pulls the plug on us. Let's talk about Calvin Ridley. You have him slightly outside wide receiver 2 territory by like maybe one spot.
Yes, I do. But I mean, the market is I have markets at wide receiver 15. So markets like very high level wide receiver 2. To be honest, it's very difficult to find receivers that I'm very out of step with in terms of ADP, because I'm finding in the fourth, fifth, sixth rounds, that's mostly now stacked with receivers for me, and the market still isn't quite there. So I think generally speaking, you look at a receiver in my ranks at harrisfootball.com and look at the ADP, I'm usually higher on the guys we're considering in that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. And so the reason I'm nominating Ridley, despite the fact, Dave, did you see that he could squat a lot? Do you see that? Are you excited? Does that
No,
make you?
no, because I'm not cutting that into our video. Now I am. Now that I said that.
Yeah, now we have to cut in Calvin Ridley squatting 1,000 pounds. I think it's once again it's wish casting. Once again it's aspirational, and it's not like I'm not wish casting and aspirational on different players. So it's not fair to say I'm down on Calvin Ridley relative to the market because people are thinking he's going to do a thing he's never done before. But has he proven in any way that he's that kind of receiver? Has he proven that he's like a really physical guy? Has he proven that he's a really big guy? Has he proven that he's a really fast guy? Has he proven that Pat Doherty and I both had Ridley on our bust lists on the podcast, and Pat said, rightly so, like, do you see open field chops like Chris Godwin, for example? Do you see, like, no, I think you've seen an okay player, a pretty good professional player, score some touchdowns, especially the rookie year, to make it look maybe a little better than it was. And otherwise, you see kind of a lot of spreading the ball around, and Calvin Ridley takes a backseat to Julio Jones because he should. It's hard for me to get worked up. I'm not trying to tell you Ridley's a bad player, but there are just many, many receivers I prefer to him in that range of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, DJ Moore, Adam Thielen, and the list probably is 5 or 6 more guys as well. A little more proven, a little maybe better performance so far on film, which isn't to denigrate what he's been on film. He's been okay.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that we aren't seeing, if we're seeing Ridley creeping up, that we're not seeing Julio a little lower, right? It feels like that would be the narrative streak that's doing
he's 5, like, right.
But he's still up there in the top 5, and it's not quite happening. And that's not
right. He's 5. What's interesting that people are ready to go, oh, baby, both Falcons receivers, almost wide receiver 1. And, but Seahawks receivers, meh. Right. And you know what that's all about. That's about
Seattle doesn't pass. They never pass.
Right. Seattle never passes. Yeah. There's only 30 passes a game there. And I mean, that's plenty for me. But I grant you the Falcons probably have more, but there's enough. But, if we were going to line up and play flag football right now, of those 4 receivers, I'm going to ask you, Dave, to make a pick. You've the first pick to play flag football between Julio, Tyler Lockett, Calvin Ridley, and DK Metcalf. Who you got?
Julio's my guy. I don't care his age.
Okay, I might take Lockett and I might take Metcalf, but who I'm not taking with my second pick there in the flag football game?
So we put him on the bus list.
I'm not taking Calvin Ridley. I think he goes 4th. Yeah, I think he goes 4th. Hence, I'm not sure that I want him this year at that price.
Well, we buried the lead. There's a first round pick. That is, if you listen to the channel, or watch the channel, listen to the pod, the first round pick on our bus list.
You've gotten to hear Harris be wrong again and again and again.
Let's stay on brand. Derrick Henry makes our bus video.
I got a tweet like, just give it up, dude. They heard he was my number 1 bust on the podcast, and dude was like, just take the L. I love your show, but just take the L. And the answer is no, I'm not going to take the L. So I have Henry rated above Miles Sanders. I have Henry like 10 among running backs. I'm not. He's higher than he's ever been for me before. I wouldn't take him in the first round. I'm going to show you a few plays while we're talking about why. But like, I acknowledge that last year that ride was fantastic. What's funny is that he sat. It's not that funny. He had this amazing 3-game stretch leading up to week 16. Where he started to go just ballistic, right? They started to just use him a ton, and he was grinding people to dust, and the offensive line was grinding people to dust. And then week 16 comes out, and they didn't need week 16, so he was injured, but he wasn't really injured, and he sat out your fantasy championship. So all the people who had him last year, I have to imagine there's a little sour taste, but the playoffs where he goes crazy against the Patriots, he goes crazy against the Ravens. I understand the potential for him to go crazy. He's a huge human being who, once he gets up to speed, runs over people and is very, very difficult to stop. I just think it's a hard road to hoe, man. For 3 months last year, he was fine. He was like RB 14, RB 9, RB 10, 7. No, he wasn't 10. Like he was in the 10, 11, 12, depending on your format, maybe a little lower than that in PPR. He has such a narrow path to being a first round fantasy pick compared to anybody else in the entire first round, because he's not going to catch passes. Probably, maybe they'll change, but it's not really what he does. And then he just has an awful lot. He relies on an offensive line. He relies on a quarterback play action stuff working, and he relies on finding the one crease a game where he's able to run for 100 yards and make your week. It's just a game that I would never want to play in the first round, Dave.
I mean, I think the not pay the price in the first round is the big deal. Like you said, he was running back 14 through the first 10 weeks, which still sounds pretty good. Like if you had that, you're like, okay, I've got a top 20 running back.
Sure.
But if I phrase it as he was behind David Johnson for the first 10 weeks, that probably makes people feel a little worse if you're looking at your ADP right now. And a second round pick, cool, but you're never going to get him in the second this year. So I understand why he's on this list.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, again, bust is relative to some degree. You could make a list of safe players and say, regardless of price, Henry's pretty safe because who else is there in Tennessee? Because that offense is pretty clearly needs him to be good or it's not going to be good. But at the price, I just don't think you can make that argument. It feels like everything needs to go perfectly. Ryan Tannehill still needs to be great. They lost the right tackle, so the offensive line still needs to be mashing people. And Henry himself needs to stay healthy. Like there's just a lot of stuff there to go wrong that he won't wind up at the top end of his range of outcomes. And I'm never going to pay that price.
Because we know causation always is the same as correlation, we got to send cousin Josh on vacation again. Because I believe he went on his honeymoon and then Henry just blew up for it. So every Derrick Henry owner, send cousin Josh on their trip and you're fine. You made it.
Although that was 2 years ago, right? That wasn't last year. Yeah. But you're right. He has gone crazy 2 years in a row, and it's like Tennessee has sort of discovered that he was on the roster, come around mid-November every year the past 2 years. Oh yeah, we should use that guy.
They're playing rope-a-dope is what they do. So if you can trade for Derrick Henry, we're calling it right now. Trade for him in week 10, and you got to steal. All right.
Perfect.
Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe, and don't draft these players or do it the right price. That's really what we're saying. Thanks, Chris. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button, write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.